Hi, I'm AJ Jones and welcome to Meet the Team, where I'll be on a virtual pit wall of a circuit while some of our drivers are working on setups or practicing for a race, and I'll be asking them a few questions and hopefully getting some good answers from them as an opportunity for you as an audience to get to know them and also see how we operate as a team. This is the first of a series, so hopefully it goes well. We will be looking for constructive comments. If you do have any, put them in the section below, and we will certainly take them on board and hopefully improve for the next one. Okay, well, let's get into it.
Hi guys, so here we are at Motegi Short Oval with the team practicing for the DRC Championship Round 2. This is the first oval race in the championship. The guys have done a street race at St. Petersburg. Unfortunately, Jens wasn't able to make that race. Max did fantastic. He came P2. So we'll find out how he's going to get one more up or step up on the podium for the next race. So we have here on the track Jens and Max, also supported by our oval specialist Alyssa, who is actually training them to see what pace they can get out of the car, how they can set the car up to maximise the result, because this is actually the first time Jens and Max have raced on an oval circuit, and Alyssa has a lot of previous in both AC and in iRacing, so she's the perfect person to be helping them out. Welcome Max and welcome Jens and Alyssa. Thank you very much for supporting and training them today. So let's start with the questions. Jens, tell us a bit about yourself and how long have you been racing in the sim? And do you actually have any real life experience as well?
I'm Jens Liebau. I am 15 years old, and I have raced on the simulator since I was 6 years old, since 2015. I did F1 back then, so yeah, that's my experience, and I've never raced on an oval before, as you already said.
Great.
So, yeah.
Great. So you're enjoying the experience on the oval, which is always good to see. And Max, tell us a bit about yourself.
Hey everyone, I'm Max Simmons. I've been sim racing since around about 2013. Started on F1 2011 on the PS3 on the controller, and I just kind of snowballed into Gran Turismo, Project Cars 2, and all those other sims. I don't really have any real life racing experience. I've only driven rental go-karts, and yeah, I've just been slowly getting quicker over the years, learning things here and there. I have driven on ovals before, but not seriously. Just like, what's driving an IndyCar around Indianapolis like,
Okay, that's great. And first up, did you enjoy your first experience in the IndyCars at St. Petersburg?
Absolutely. It is so nice to be back in a car with downforce again, because I've been driving GT3s since like the end of 2019, because the last time I did a league race and a single seater was on F1 2019. That was some time ago. So yeah, it's very nice to have downforce, very nice to have grip and all that. Very fun car to drive.
Oh, great. So you do actually have some open wheel racing experience, but this is your first one for turn one. So thank you very much for showing up and doing this. Jens, do you actually have any previous open wheel experience?
I have raced F1 cars before in the simulator. I have done the F1 games as well. I've done everything since F1 2016. So I have quite a lot of experience in open wheelers, just not IndyCars.
Great, and you missed the first race, so this will be your effectively your first race of the championship. Where do you see yourself? How do you see yourself performing in this? What are you trying to achieve in this first race, other than the obvious answer of trying to get P1? Given it's your first open wheel race on a circuit, where do you realistically think you can come out?
Well, of course, I hope I can compete for the win, and yeah, since Max got P2 and I'm quite similar in pace to him, I think we both can compete for the win, so it should be interesting.
That's great. Okay, so going back to, knowing a bit more about you, how long have you been racing for Turn 1? And what's the most important thing to you about the team?
I have been racing in Turn 1 since April 2024. So, for a little bit, less than a year. I really like all of the people in Turn 1. It's a very friendly community. So yeah, that's what I love about Turn 1.
Great. And Max, similarly, how long have you been racing for Turn 1? And what's the most important thing to you about it? And what do you enjoy about it?
I've been racing for Turn 1 since, I think, November 2021. It's been quite a while. And the thing that I love about Turn 1 is it's a place for me to improve my sim racing skills. Just, continue to raise the bar each time I get on track and eventually try to make it to the top of esports.
Great. Max, while I have you in the chair, everyone at Turn 1 knows Max doesn't like to practice without a purpose. So how often do you actually practice for a race?
It all depends, really. If I'm, driving a car and track combo that's difficult for me, like Coda, for an example, I'm on a single monitor, I can't see quite a few of the apexes. So I usually just keep driving until I have the muscle memory to actually hit the apexes consistently. But if it's a track that's really easy for me, then I just keep practicing until the lap times don't improve and I'm not making any mistakes. If I'm making car setup changes, then I guess that does still count as practice. But if there are no car setup changes to be made, then I'm good to go until about a day before race day, and then I'll refresh my brain a little bit before I go to bed.
That's a great answer. So we now have a bit more insight into Max and his no practice regimen. So speaking of practice regimen, Jens, what's the most important part of practice for you, and what's really important for you to do that's consistent in your practice regimen?
Well, for me, the setup is a very important factor to how I drive. I don't like the cars that step out every single corner. I need a bit of stability, so that's very important for me. And I also need to learn the lines and the braking points on the tracks that I don't know, and that's for me the most important while practicing.
Okay, great. So we have Alyssa in here, and I know, apologies Alyssa, I know you weren't expecting any questions, but both of them have talked about the importance of getting the setup right and practicing with that setup. So as you're one of our race engineers, as well as training these guys on this oval circuit, what are you looking for from the setup of this car for these guys?
Setup wise, it's a bit tricky on ovals. Especially with everything being fixed, because you're going to be dealing with a lot of error rake from cars in front of you, as well as, of course, at times running in free air. And these cars are quite aero sensitive when dealing with that. So you'll find a lot of the time when you're tucked up right behind somebody, or even in a couple of seconds, you're just going to be getting a wash of dirty air, which will just make you understeer the corners. Now, the ways you can sort that out in terms of setup will be by adjusting your suspension and your roll bars. IndyCars in real life have something called a weight jacker, which adjusts your right rear spring height with positive numbers, allowing for more height from the right rear spring compared to the left rear spring, so you kind of add a positive degree angle up on the right side compared to a negative degree angle on the right. And what that happens when it's raised is it frees the car up, Now, freeing the car up means it turns better, basically.
It all sounds way too technical for me, which is why I rely on you engineers in the team to help me set up a car. Especially when it comes to dampers and the like. I'm lost, and especially reading Motec. So, hats off to you, Alyssa, and hats off to the other engineers in the team who study this stuff religiously and make good setups for us to drive. And I'm sure Jens and Max are extremely grateful for all the work you're doing. Okay, so back to some questions for the drivers. We've talked about what's important for you to do in terms of practice, but also how do you actually get into the right mindset on race day? So that one's a question for you, first of all, Jens.
For me, I like to do a few practice laps before the qualifying or the race, just to get into the rhythm, and that makes me concentrate more in the race, and the pressure also just goes off when I do a few practice laps like before the race, and that's what helps me a lot.
Okay, great. Over to you, Max. What's the same question?
Around about the same. If the server has practice on it, then just do a couple practice laps with the setup that you're going to use during the race. Qualifying, well, I mean, that's honestly for me, qualifying is more difficult than the actual race itself, because you have to nail that one lap, and usually my race pace is better than qualifying pace. When it comes to the race, just do the same thing over and over again. Don't make mistakes, be consistent, and capitalize on other people's mistakes.
Okay, well that's fair. That sounds reasonable. I mean, this series is a sprint series, so you talked about just getting into I'm going to paraphrase, getting into a rhythm. So, when you're in a sprint race, do you actually push every lap, or do you just try to find that consistent pace and get into that steady rhythm that we mentioned?
It really depends. If there's someone in front of me, and I want to get by them, then usually I'm pushing 100%. But if there's no one in front of me, then I'll usually try to back it off a little bit, maybe 98, 97%, so I'm not completely on the edge, so I can keep it on the track. And also be mindful of where people could go for potential moves as well.
Okay, and is that the same for you, Jens?
Yeah, when I am at the front of the field...
You're such a liar. You push every lap. You know you do.
When I'm at the front of the field, I try to control the pace and just try to not make any mistakes. But when I'm behind people, I go for I try to go for moves, and I push quite a lot.
Okay, and that is, again, this is a sprint race, but you guys all do a lot of endurance racing. Is your mindset different for an endurance race than it is for a sprint race? Go on, Max. As you said the first, you answer.
Well, generally, I do it exactly the same, because in a sprint race, I'm trying to be quick, but also consistent. The way I approach an endurance race is each stint is essentially a mini sprint race. And the only thing that I'm going to do different is maybe give people a little extra room than I normally would. Say, if, it's a 24-hour race and there's 15 hours left, there's no point in fighting like it's the last lap. But I'm still going to drive the stint the same way I would drive a normal sprint race.
Okay, and again, is that the same for you, Jens? You always appear to be cool under pressure. So, how do you always, keep such a cool persona when you're racing?
I just try to do what I would do when I'm not under pressure, and just don't make any mistakes. And for me, it's just quite easy to do that, especially when I have practice under my belt.
Okay, great. So, we've asked you a lot of questions here, and you know, it's a bit unfair to ask this one because I don't think you would be prepared for this one. And to be fair, Jens, you're quite young yourself. But what's the one bit of advice that you would give to any aspiring sim racer?
That's quite a difficult question, but I would say just go for it and don't give up. And eventually you will get there.
That's wise words from you there, and from you, Max?
The first thing I would say is when you practice with a purpose. Don't just endlessly do laps. Because, like, if you just do laps, you may, you know, have a much quicker lap time. You may randomly have a lap that's 4/10 quicker than the previous one. But you have no idea why. Because you were just simply driving. So when you practice with a purpose. Focus on a singular aspect. Like, are you trying to work on trail braking? Are you trying to work on, you know, putting the power down smoothly in a car with no traction control? And the other thing I would say is just learn. Because the one thing you need to know is that people who are quicker than you are doing what you're doing, just better. So figure out what your bad habits are and practice on fixing those bad habits.
Again, some very wise words. You're beginning to sound like an old hat now. You know, with all of these words of advice. You Gen Zers are growing up way too quickly. But I'm loving it. It's fantastic. So as I said, some really good advice. And obviously, a slightly older generation are beginning to rub off on new ones. Alyssa, just one quick question for you. I've noticed that the times are all very similar. How do you think these guys are performing? And is there any way you can get any more temps out of them so that they, you know, they're running at the very front of the grid, even though this is their first oval race?
Yeah, absolutely. The main thing I've wanted to work on with this setup is seeing how it handles between dirty and free air. With not being able to make any in-car adjustments, it's important to get that balance. Because once you're out of the air, the car just behaves completely differently. In terms of single car speed, it's not going to matter too much at this track, because you're not going to be really running single car. It's all just about trying to see how the car handles on a long run, trying to make it okay on tyres, okay in traffic, and then okay on its own, ordered within one setup window.
Great, and I've noticed that Jens currently has the quickest lap on the server, but we do know that was with low fuel, and you guys are running with race fuel, so we will start calling Jens from now on Mr. Cheaty Weety. He wants to be at the front.
Actually, that was a lap on race fuel, but I was in Alyssa slipstream, so that is why I did.
There you go. There you go. Actually, slipstream is extremely important in on an oval track. You can get lots of places and get so much time just getting in someone's slipstream. So I can appreciate that.
On the straights, yes.
Go on, Alyssa. Yeah.
On the straights, yes, slipstream is very helpful, but it's as soon as you get into a lot of these tight corners. I know Motegi's a bit egg-shaped, but as soon as you get into these corners with the high speed, you're just going to be understeering a lot with that aero wash. So it's good till a point, and then just in the corners, you're just going to be scrambling to try and find clean air, because it's so easy just to take too much speed behind somebody and just go straight up into the outside wall.
Okay, that's fair. Well, I mean, this has been a really useful exercise for me to get to understand a bit more about oval racing. I have only ever done it as on a bit of a social night, and it was a disaster for me. But I've learnt a lot, and I'm enthused for you guys to be racing this, and it's actually inspiring me to do some myself. So look out, I might be in the next one. Guys, Alyssa, this has been really useful, really good interview. I hope anyone that's watching it, also thinks it's been a useful exercise, because now you're finally getting to know the team, and they can get to know how we operate. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll catch you at the next one.